Making this film was my first time into Kashmir, and it was quite strange because you didn't really get a feeling for the numbers of troops and police that were on the ground there. And then when you actually got the opportunity to visit with locals, it was amazing the fear that seemed so embedded in them. But what we found as we spent a bit of time with people, they're actually quite desperate to get people to listen to what they had to say. They were really quite suppressed because many of the towns are quite tightly controlled. And at the first hint of any trouble, we'd find that roads were shut down and roadblocks put up and we wouldn't be able to access. There were several occasions where we went to film with someone and there was no way in. Whilst we were filming, you would do your best to try and keep a low profile, but at the same time you needed to capture the footage that was required to make the film. So it was a real sort of mixture of being, you know, fairly brazen in what you do so that you're not looking suspicious, but at times having to sort of jump out of a van and screw yourself into someone's house to film an interview. I mean, all the time we would be going to meet people, we would constantly be keeping our time limits very strict. You know, we would avoid spending too long in any one location. Because like all these films, you know, until you actually complete it, the risks are much higher. You know, whilst it's not a film and nothing's out there, then, you know, people can be rounded up and interrogated. And given the fact this was a film that talked about how many people were tortured, you kind of had an inkling as to what might happen to the people that were working with us.
वहाँ पर जनाब आकर तो वहाँ इंटरकेशन में जगह वहाँ अंदर बंद थे ना, बारह के अंदर बंद थे, तो उसने आकर वहाँ अंदर से फौज लाई, तो फौज आकर तो पूरे मेरे ऊपर चढ़ गए। अच्छा। तो फिर एक ने मारा छुरा ऐसा तो मेरी टांगे दोनों काट दी। अच्छा जी जनाब। तो मैं देख रहा था मेरा खून ऐसा चल रहा था, मेरे पाँव आगे पड़े हुए थे, वो ऐसे ऐसे चल रहे थे मेरे पाँव दोनों। अच्छा।
Filming undercover or covertly is very much about managing how you operate and being very concise and precise about what you do. You need to be very strict at working out where you're going to go, how long you're going to go there for, what you feel the risks might be or not be. If it was a particularly sensitive shoot, then we may take the laptop with us and download rushes immediately after filming an interview or a sequence and put them onto a partition on a hard drive so that we could, you know, maximize our opportunities of getting footage. I did use several different cameras on this. One of the greatest tools for me for capturing police and army and security personnel was to use a 7D. People just feel less threatened when having a still photo taken than if they know they're being videoed. Obviously, we also went out when there was stone pelting taking place and we filmed both sides of that. There were risks of getting hit by the odd rock, and it did happen, but we wore protection in the form of bump caps. This has been going on for quite a while, and currently nobody seems to see any ending to it. Even younger boys and girls are starting to take part. You know, we know of a kid that was 8 years old who's taking part in this. You know, and what they're taking part in is basically the only way they feel they have a voice to show their discontent.
If we hear the word army, will we get tense? Oh, army? No, outside is not safe. Stay at home. The mothers tell their students, tell their chaps or babies, don't get outside. Outside is army. What kind? That is terrorist. We are not terrorists. They are terrorists. They terrorize us. We don't terrorize them.
Many of the young kids, you know, just don't see a future for themselves. You know, they see no hope, and I think that's the sadness in any film, you know, that you make. That if you find people who have lost hope, then you've almost lost the will to live. You know, hope is the one thing that I think keeps people alive.
In Kashmir में देखो एक बार न्यूज़ आती है आज यहाँ पर मारा गया, दूसरे दिन ये न्यूज़ आती है आज वहाँ पर मारा गया, तीसरे दिन ये न्यूज़ है गायब भी हो गया.
बहुत से लड़के गायब हुए, पता ही नहीं चला है वो कैसे गायब हुए, क्यों गायब हुए, किसी को पता नहीं, उनके माँ बाप को पता नहीं है कि क्यों गायब हुए, क्या वजह क्या थी। इसीलिए हम नहीं जा सकते, हम मजबूर हैं, हम कुछ नहीं कर सकते।
It was the way this sort of cut across everyone we met, from 16-year-old boys through to, 65-year-old fathers, or and the whole sort of generations in between, and it was everybody was in this same place, that they felt that as Kashmiris that they just existed, and in fact their existence was even a bit of an annoyance. And I thought, it was tragic to see that. It's tragic to be somewhere that's so beautiful and has so much to offer. I mean, it's absolutely stunning in Kashmir. I mean, the mountain backdrop is one of the most beautiful places I've been. And it's so tragic to see this beauty surrounded by this utter despair and desperation. Currently, the lawyer we followed, Parvez Imroz, has a dossier of several thousand missing people, which he wants investigated. He wants the graves to be checked. He wants these, any paperwork that can be found to work out where these people are to be looked into. He has multiple claims of torture, and that torture is continuing in torture centres across India. My hope is that this will be taken seriously, and that this will be looked into. Luckily, we managed to finish this film and get it out there. It's now up to those agencies working in this area to take this film and use it to try and make a difference, to try and change things, to try and support people like Parvez Imroz, who are trying to make people accountable for the crimes that he alleges they've caused. And most people we spoke to, they genuinely said they had no issues with the Indian people. They weren't anti-Indian. It was the establishment. It was what was happening to them at the hands of the security forces that they were angry with. So I really believe that if things did change, there is no reason why there couldn't be peaceful coexistence between Kashmiris and Indians. It just kind of shows you that with all these places you go to, the ordinary average person just genuinely wants to live an ordinary average life. They just want what we all want. They want to live in peace. They want to have an opportunity of a future. They want to go to university or educate, or they want to get a decent job. And it doesn't matter where you are, whether it's China, Tibet, Kashmir, London, we all pretty much want the same thing. It's just for many people those opportunities aren't there. I just hope that the risks the contributors have taken, the risks the team took, are ultimately going to be worth it. When you set out to make a film like this, the only offering you have to those who take these risks is that this film might make a difference. This might be the one time people sit up and listen. So all I can really hope is that it will.